Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 13, not 12, of Project Geekology. The reason why I say that is because I've been stumbling like 13 times. And on this week, we're going to be talking about Princess Mononoke, an anime film that I hold dear to my heart. But before we get into that, I am one half of your host, Anthony, and joining me as always is...
Dakota! Hey guys, I'm really excited to talk about Princess Mononoke. It was, for a long time, my favorite Studio Ghibli film, my favorite Hayao Miyazaki film. And for those who don't know, I recently came out with a video talking about Hayao Miyazaki's second movie, Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind. And that was really fun, and I kind of compared the themes in that movie with all the other movies that he came out with after the fact. And Princess Mononoke follows a lot of the themes that we see in Nausicaa. And yeah, so last month I was able to rewatch all 11 Miyazaki movies, and this is still like one of the best that he's produced. But it's no longer my favorite. I think I've grown to like enjoy the subtlety of some of his other movies a little bit more, maybe as I've matured a little bit. But this is going to be so much fun to talk about because it's so fresh for me, and you recently watched it too, right?
Correct. This has been the first time in a while that I had seen it. I also agree. It was one of my favorite films for a while. I don't know if it is currently my favorite, but I still hold it pretty high on my list as far as Studio Ghibli movies. Right there along with Spirited Away, Howl's Moving Castle. Howl's Moving Castle is definitely up there on my list too. I believe that Princess Mononoke is a great first film to talk about, to kick us off into talking about Studio Ghibli movies. And while we're not going to be talking about one every week, I do want to talk about the other films. I think they all have something about it that's special.
Yeah.
And I think that they're worth talking about on a singular level.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we could talk about like kind of like the macro of Studio Ghibli and Hayao Miyazaki. There's so much there. Just the man himself is such an interesting character. He's like this grumpy old man. He's like the Alan Moore of anime films. But he is super... I mean, as far as like what he was capable of doing, like he started his career pretty late. Hayao Miyazaki. He started his career of filmmaking when he was, I think, 39 years old. So he was in his early 70s or mid 70s, I should say, when The Wind Rises came out in 2013. So, I mean, he's had a huge career spanning 40 years, something like that, and the guy's a legend. This film came out in 1997. It was kind of at the peak of his pushing animation to its limits. This would precede Spirited Away, which I think is his greatest feat in terms of filmmaking. It's the one that got him the Oscar for Best Animated Film. But Princess Mononoke, in terms of themes, is one of the best. It's the strongest in terms of like its environmental message, and it's one of the best in terms of like expressing humanity and how essential that is, that we get along with, you know, everything else. But anyway,
right with nature. Yeah. We were talking a little bit about that off of the recording. But I do think that it's important to point out those themes that, yeah, he is pretty much talking about how humanity needs to take care of nature, pretty much.
Yeah, but before we begin in the actual diving into the story and what we took from it, Anthony, what have you been up to this past week? I know it hasn't been all highs for you.
Right. Well, being able to watch Princess Mononoke again was great. It's always great to revisit Studio Ghibli films. And I mean, you know, I have the Oculus Quest 2 now, which I'm pretty excited about. I've been playing Beat Saber and Star Wars Tales from the Galaxy's Edge, and that's been pretty fun.
And that's VR.
Yes. So, I mean, those have been my highs. Like Dakota had mentioned, my week hasn't been completely filled with ups.
Yesterday we were supposed to record but I got a text message from Anthony like a couple minutes before that saying, "Hey, dude, I just got into a car accident," and I was like, "Oh crap, what happened?" And he didn't text me back for a while, so I was like worried. But he's fine. Anthony, you're still alive. You're doing good.
Right. Yeah. I had gotten into a car accident. Well, yeah, my car is not usable anymore, which kind of sucks. But yes, I am alive, and I'm happy about that.
Yeah. Nobody was seriously injured, right? The kid was fine, right? Yeah. Okay,
right.
That's good.
Well, enough about me. How about you, Dakota? What have you been up to? What's going on in your life?
What's going on in my life? I started... everyone has been talking about The Mandalorian recently. We spoke about it. We've been speaking about it like every week on our show, just here and there. This week was another crazy episode. I don't know. I think some people thought like this was the best episode that they've released yet. I don't know if I'd go that far, but
right.
Because seeing Ahsoka in live action the previous week was something really special. That was something,
at least for me.
Yeah, I mean, it should be for everyone seeing something from a canon cartoon come into live action with such finesse, with such perfection. It felt so real, and I love that about it. And Dave Filoni killed that episode. But I also really liked what Robert Rodriguez did with this recent episode. Robert Rodriguez, he did the Machete films, he did the Spy Kids movies, he did Shark Boy and Lava Girl.
Oh man, the films of our youth.
The films of our youth, yeah. Speaking of which, there's like a pseudo Shark Boy and Lava Girl sequel coming out, but it doesn't.
Yeah,
it doesn't
I
have
saw that.
Taylor
Like, We Are
Lautner.
Heroes. Yeah, that's crazy. I couldn't believe that.
Because of that, I needed to finally get through the Clone Wars. So Jen and I have just sat down to just start watching it. I think the first season's really hard to get into through the Clone Wars, just because so much is happening in random order. It's not necessarily chronological. The first couple seasons, really. So we are currently like 5 or 6 episodes into season 2, and we're finally like, all right, this is awesome. But it took a little bit. It took a little bit. For me, there was like a lot of false starts with Star Wars: The Clone Wars. I mean, I say false starts. I mean to say that like I've started watching The Clone Wars so many times, but I just can't get past a certain point, or I just fall off. I don't have the interest or whatever. But right now, I'm past the point of no return. I'm past the point where I'm like invested in the characters and what's going on in the Clone Wars, in the galaxy. I really love Rebels. That was really my introduction to Star Wars in animation, and Dave Filoni's stuff especially. That show is a lot more serialized. Star Wars Rebels, like the story follows the life of this orphan kid, Ezra Bridger, on his path to becoming a Jedi. But with the Clone Wars, it's just little pockets of the galaxy at war, and it's fun because you're following a core group of characters. You got the Obi-Wans and the Anakins and the Ahsokas, but you have other people that you're following as well, and I all that's pretty cool, and I'm enjoying that.
Yeah. Well, you know how I feel about Clone Wars. I absolutely love Clone Wars.
You grew up on it,
and
right?
I will. What happened?
Did you grow up with it, or?
So I did watch Clone Wars on TV, but at that point when it came on, I was like older. I was in high school.
Oh, that's right. I feel like I want to say that Clone Wars was like something that I could have watched when I was a kid, but that's not necessarily the case because it came out like 2011, 2012.
So they had another Clone Wars one.
They had the 2D one that's no longer canon. They had
the 2D one, right? And then I think if I'm correct, the current Clone Wars, or the canon Clone Wars, it came out in 2008. I think it had started.
I think you're right. Yeah, I think you're right. So anyway, that's what I've been up to. Starting to do that. I've been happy to give anime a little break for a little while, at least anime films, just because watching all 11 Hayao Miyazaki films, while awesome, and it was like an adventure for me. I don't think I've ever watched the entire filmography of a director in chronological order or like in release order. You know what I mean? I don't think I've ever done that before. So this was kind of cool. I'm burnt out of watching that kind of thing. So after we discuss Princess Mononoke, I will have officially got it off my shoulders. We can get into our next topic, which I'm also very excited about.
No, I totally get that. I'm the same way. Once I kind of indulge too much of a certain type of thing, I'll burn out on it and kind of move on to something else. Like I didn't mention in the Overwatch episode, but you know, like I had played so much Overwatch, like every once in a while, like I would take like, you know, 2 weeks to a month off of playing Overwatch to play other things. And then now I've kind of regulated it to where like I'll play a little bit here and there instead of like just being straight up on there, because I mean, you know me, like I'm a gamer. I like to play a lot of different things. So
I got you. Anyway, yeah, I get really obsessive about things, and as soon as I get onto the next thing, I totally forget about what I was obsessed with before. And that's like maybe a flaw in my personality or whatever, or just like the way I'm wired. But I'm really excited to I've seen a lot of people posting on Twitter about like the 4K Lord of the Rings releases, and I'm super excited to give those a watch.
Oh my goodness, do I need to buy more? Like I already have the Blu-ray ones.
I know.
4K extended editions, dude. I have regular DVD. I have Blu-ray, and now I have to get 4K extended editions. Oh my goodness!
You don't have to. You don't have to. But what I find pretty cool is that back when they made the films, they didn't have the computer technology that we have today in terms of like being able to color grade things so that it looks the right way. So people have been comparing shots from like the normal 1080p to the updated 4K, and the colors just pop. Or there's more contrast where there needs to be contrast without losing like any of like the blacks or whatever.
Okay.
It
like
looks
how
really good.
Some colors look a little washed out.
Yeah. That happens when you have. Well, I mean, it can happen on
like a CG.
Exactly. Yeah. There's a lot of things that can go wrong in that, and he fixed that. He, meaning Peter Jackson, fixed a lot of those things. He also updated some of the models of the CG characters. He didn't change the models. He just like patched them. You know, like when you play like an old video game that they remastered. He remastered certain models that he used, like Treebeard. Like Treebeard looks much better now, even though it's the exact same. It's the exact same thing. It's just the texture is better.
That's cool.
So stuff like that.
That's cool. We'll definitely have to cover Lord of the Rings in a future podcast, obviously individually.
Yeah, we can't talk about the whole thing. I mean, we can, but we shouldn't.
All in one episode. 3 hours long.
We should do a Lord of the Rings extended edition watch party podcast.
Oh man, that'd be cool.
I feel like we'd get like some sort of like monetization, or not monetization, but like a claim on that. Anyway, we should start talking about Princess Mononoke. We're about 20 minutes into our recording at this point. But
yes.
Anthony, when was the last time you had seen this movie? Do you remember? Or
the last time that I had seen this movie, my goodness. I think I was back in high school, like earlier in high school though, like 9th or 10th grade. Okay. So that had been a while.
Okay, yeah. I think I first watched this around my freshman or sophomore year of high school, so similar-ish time to that. I think I was introduced to Spirited Away through like a film studies course that I had in my high school then. And because I liked that so much, I found some of his other films, and Princess Mononoke was the one that stood out to me as like, wow, this is game-changing. This is the best cartoon movie I have ever seen. And I think maybe to some extent I was right about that, you know? Like maybe that was the best cartoon movie that I had ever seen. It certainly is one of the most striking because it's not aimed at children, certainly. It's one of Miyazaki's most graphic, if not his most graphic movie, period. It's telling you things even deeper I think, than even just the environmental stuff. Like, one of the cool things I found from rewatching Princess Mononoke is that there's no real bad characters. You have people with either bad intentions or people who are trying to make their way in the world or trying to make a quick buck, but you don't have outright bad people. And I think that's an interesting outlook that Miyazaki has on the world. He doesn't like to categorize people as good and evil because he doesn't find that interesting. This movie really showcases a lot of those characters. Like a lot of just gray characters who are just going about their own story and trying to get by, basically. And that was different for me. That really stood out for me. Whether I realized that's what I was seeing when I first watched the movie or not, I don't know. I don't know if I got all those subtle details that I would have as an adult now, but something about the movie really stood out to me as just being different from your typical Disney fare, even different from some of the better Pixar movies. No, I'm not saying it's better than a Pixar movie. I'm just saying it's just different, you know?
Yeah, I agree. It's mature. It's a mature thing to watch. I watched it when I was a kid, and then I watched it again in high school, but I don't think I really understood the themes more until the last time I watched it.
Most recently.
You know what? Yeah, right. You know, now that I've matured a bit, and I'm looking past just the pretty animation and the cool stuff that's happening on screen. I'm actually paying attention to what's happening in the story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and yeah, it's mature. Yeah, it's not anything like Disney at all.
And it makes it really abundantly clear that it's nothing like Disney. Really soon we have, you know, characters like literally losing limbs to arrow shots. You have people being beheaded and stuff. With those morally gray, but like, you know, leaning towards the antagonist side of the spectrum, you have characters like Lady Eboshi who literally shoots the head off of like the spirit of the forest. And It's like, what? Why? And, you know, from her perspective, it makes sense. She's trying to do what's best for her people. She's trying to keep them prosperous. She's trying to keep the forest spirits from attacking her place, and she thinks the best thing to do is to take out the head of the forest spirits. But really, you lose all balance when you do that. And it's really just it's a masterpiece. And it's one of those things, like, the more I talk about it, the more I'm like, man, this is a really good movie.
Yeah, exactly. I agree.
I made that whole big video about, you know, like studying Miyazaki through the lens of Nausicaa, of the Valley of the Wind. And I compared Nausicaa, who's a very strong female character, to some of his other strong female characters. And, you know, I'm naming people like Chihiro from Spirited Away. I'm naming people like Kiki from Kiki's Delivery Service. And then I flubbed really hard and I called San Princess Mononoke in the video, and nobody's commented on it, but it's like, that's not technically her name, it's just the title of the film, and I'm kind of annoyed at myself for doing that. But, you know, we're all human, we make mistakes.
I know. Yeah, I was thinking the same thing for the longest time. You know, yeah, I would say the same thing. I would call her Princess Mononoke, but then I would have to correct myself, you know, because her name is San.
Right. Yeah.
But let's go through the movie a little bit. It starts off with Ashitaka in his village, but I mean, he's not at his village. He's running away from something, and he bumps into his sister and some of the other villagers, and pretty much tells them to go back to their village. He gets to this watchtower, and that's where you see there's this like wild boar that is it's a
like
god, right?
Yeah, it's like a Shinigami or something like that. It's translated differently. Some translations like call it a god, some call it like a demon. I like to call it a monster with tentacles.
Right. Yeah. That's. I mean, essentially, that's what it was.
It's a corrupted spirit. It's a corrupted spirit of the forest. That's
right.
Essentially
exactly.
what it is. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a corrupted spirit of the forest, and so Ashitaka is fighting this spirit, and in the course of this battle, the spirit touches him, and so he becomes corrupted with.
It's like a curse.
Right. Yeah. He gets corrupted with this curse that was on this spirit of the forest, and he takes down this boar. But then he finds out that this curse is going to eventually kill him. Yeah, so the wise old lady, she tells him that this curse is going to kill him, and she sends him off into the distance to pretty much see what he can do about the unrest that's happening between the humans and the spirits, or to see for his own unbiased eyes. Right. That's what they call it. Yeah, unbiased eyes. Yeah. So he leaves. He goes on this. He goes onto this journey.
Let me pause. Let me pause really quick, because at this point in the story, we don't know much about Ashitaka.
Right.
Besides the fact that he's like,
prince.
Yeah, he's like a prince of this small village in like 14th century Japan. But we know that he's heroic and he's willing to fight for his people. He has a really cool steed that's like, what is it, like an elk?
Yeah. It was like a red elk.
It's such a cool mount, and those early shots. That's something that Miyazaki likes to do. Is he'll give you some form of action or adventure in the beginning, and then he'll give you like almost like a pillow shot where it's just like a calming moment of peace before the rest of the film begins. So you have like him going from like location to location with his elk, and it's just a beautiful like 10-20 seconds of the movie that I don't think like enough people talk about, just because he really loves the beauty of the natural world, and it's showcased really well here.
Yeah, I agree. And yeah, those moments of peace and quiet are like not enough people talk about it. I love when we see scenes like that. And so remember he comes across this village being attacked, and so like he kind of like intervenes a little bit. That's when he kind of like realizes that like the curse on his arm kind of gives him this like crazy power. And then this is where you realize that this movie does have a little bit of a graphic level to it, because he's like hitting these guys with the arrow and like the arms are coming off or the head's coming off. It's crazy. Yeah, I'm like, oh my goodness.
This is where you realize.
Remember this.
This is where you realize this is not for kids right here. This is not a Disney movie. And even before that, you have like the disgusting tentacles that are covering this boar creature. It's monstrous. And, it's nightmare fuel, really, if you think about it.
Nightmare fuel.
It really is. It's nightmare fuel. But it's not until you see how the curse kind of augments Ashitaka, at least his strength, to the point where he's literally like with a arrow shot he can dismember people or behead people, and that's it's crazy. It's
a pretty crazy.
It's almost like Venom, like he has a symbiote that like in some cases wants to like be in charge, like there's certain scenes in the movie where like he's fighting to like keep the curse back, repress it, while it's trying to like make him enraged and stuff. So it's almost like a symbiote relationship with him that kind of gives him a super strength.
Right. It also kind of has a mind of its own a little bit too, because there's been moments where his body will kind of act on its own and he has to like stop it.
Right. Yeah. There's moments where like it'll like his arm will like reach for his sword and he has to like grab it. I forget who he reacts that way to. I think he reacts that way to.
Yeah, it happened with Lady Eboshi.
You're right. Yeah, it definitely happened there. I remember like in the hut when she's explaining something to him and he gets like kind of angry, but then like his arm goes crazy. It's cool. All right, yeah. So sorry, I sidetracked you. He finds this village. He mediates for them, and he finds Billy Bob Thornton.
Oh yes. Billy Bob Thornton. Oh my
God. He plays. We both watched the English dub of the movie that Disney put out in 97, 98. But yeah, Billy Bob Thornton plays Jikobo, the wandering monk, who has... he's not really like a very devout monk, I don't think. He's I don't know what kind of monk he is or what he does besides, like look for profit when he can find it. But again, he's another character who's not like outright bad. He doesn't want anything bad to happen to Ashitaka, at least not in the beginning of the film. He even helps him to an extent. But,
right. When he goes to pay for he goes to pay for some rice with a gold nugget.
Right. Yeah. He tries to like tag along, maybe get a few more nuggets.
Yeah, right. He's like, "Oh, if you don't want this, I'll pay for the rice, and then I'll take this." And that lady changed her tune real quick.
What happened after that, Anthony?
San and the two wolves attack Lady Eboshi and her people that are bringing rice up to their like iron fortress. So yeah, she ends up killing a few of the oxen and some of the people, some of the workers, and they fall down the side of this mountain that they're on. And so a little bit of time passes. One of the wolves does get injured by Lady Eboshi. Mm-hmm. It gets shot. It's like San's quote unquote mother.
Right.
That gets shot.
What's the name of it? Mononoke. That's the mother wolf, like who claims San as her daughter.
Right. So they're down by the river.
In a van down by the river.
So they go down by the river. San helps clean the wounds of her mother, and this is where Ashitaka and San kind of get a glimpse of each other for the first time. And he even asks like, "Hey, are you the spirit of the forest?" And she tells him to go away. And then after that,
yeah, right after spitting blood out of her mouth. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it has it like all over her face.
Yeah.
And so yeah, he Ashitaka ends up helping some of the villagers that like fell off to the side during that scuffle, and they go through the forest. Like the forbidden forest.
Yeah, and that's one of the most interesting scenes. It's creepy, but it's also endearing and charming at the same time.
Right. Yeah. Those. What were those things that?
What are they called? Kikomori, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was funny because like the villagers were kind of like freaking out. He's like, "Oh my gosh, they're gonna kill us!" And Ashitaka's like,
"Oh, first of all, I was wrong. I don't know what I just said, but Kodama is the glowing like ghost-like things that like can like turn their head 360
I know
degrees.
it sounded so weird because like they were kind of like bobbleheads a little bit. Like they would kind of like shake their head, and they were like kind of like bobbleheads that had like something in their head that
like a rattling noise.
Yeah, it would like rattle. It was funny because that like the villagers or the villager that was awake was kind of freaking out, and Ashitaka is like, well, talking about his mount. It's like, well, if he's not freaking out, then you have nothing to be freaking out about.
Yeah. Okay. So his mount is called Yakul.
Oh yeah, Yakul. Yeah, like
I'm on Google, by the way. I'm looking all these characters up because these are not. Cool. They don't come naturally to us with American upbringing.
Yeah, exactly. Like I actually really liked that character, even though it didn't talk. It was just an animal. He had like this loyalty to Ashitaka.
Yeah, his face is almost. If you look it up really quick, it's almost like a Pokemon. Like the characteristics that he employs, the type of loyalty that he has for his master, it's almost kind of reminiscent of like the animation that they would do for Pokemon, but obviously to a much greater extent because this is Miyazaki we're talking about. But yeah, Yakul's really cool, and the idea of a kid, a prince riding around on a red elk is super sick.
Yeah, and everybody pretty much mentioned it too. They're like, "Oh my gosh, like, where did you get that red elk from?"
Yeah, I mean, it's not as striking as the young girl riding on the backs of wolves like giant white wolves. That's a little more striking, but
right. But still, like, yeah, riding on an elk is not like an everyday thing either. But if I saw somebody coming up to me on a wolf, like, I'd be like, yeah, okay, this person is crazy.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's true, but also like very cool. You know, like, how did you do that? Why did you do that? And
I got my inspiration from Princess Mononoke.
Anyway, so at this point, he goes through the forest with some of these men from Lady Eboshi's village, Irontown, and they go through the forest. They make it back, and the men are advocating. Oh, even before that, they're in the forest, and they catch a glimpse of the forest spirit. It's like not a real animal, obviously. It's like a mix of several animals. It's called the Nightwalker. It appears to have like a very humanoid face on like the body of a many antlered creature. I don't know. It's a really cool design. Again, I could see if Yakul is like the starter Pokemon, then the Nightwalker is its third evolution. Yeah, it's really cool. So yeah, they catch a glimpse of that, and that'll come into play later in the film, as we've already spoiled at this point. But they make it over to Irontown, and Lady Eboshi, like, you know, her people are hesitant to let anyone into their town just because they are constantly at war with men of other places. So they're worried that, they're worried for a number of reasons. This guy could be a spy. This guy could be trying to infiltrate from within. Blah blah blah. But Lady Eboshi, for whatever reason, is intrigued by him and lets him in, especially after he saved the lives of two of their men. And she's quite proud of like the accomplishments that she's made for these people, and for all intents and purposes, like, they live good lives. Like, even like the former prostitutes or harlots, they have gainful living. They have work that they can feel proud about because it helps keep the prosperity of the town alive. But this is where you start to see like the imagery of the town, like on the hillside, and like the rest of the area around it is burnt land. You know, there's just tree stumps burnt and stuff, and all of that was used to keep the fires burning for them to continue to make the iron that allows their town to prosper. There's so many layers to like how good this movie is, and like how well-rounded the world is, because you only really visit like 4 or 5 places in the movie. You know, you have Ashitaka's original town, you have that town that he met Billy Bob Thornton's character, and then you have you have the forest, and then you have Irontown, and so on and so forth. But everything comes together to make it feel like a real world, you know?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful world. The colors are vibrant in the places that the director wants to, like, he wants that place to really like pop out and be vibrant. And then like the places that are kind of dull, like Irontown, to kind of show that surrounding landscape is all scorched and burned and cut down. Not to show that the humans were bad, but to kind of like show, I don't know, like it was like kind of like a theme for them, like the spirits and the forest was like really like popping and vibrant, and then the towns, or at least Irontown, was like very just like dull and kind of gray a little bit, like a lot of
from the outside
work
looking
and
in,
smog going on.
From the outside looking in, it looks lifeless. It looks like a factory. But from the inside looking out, it seems like a fortress. It's like their own little slice of paradise inside this town that they're fighting to maintain. Yeah, it's cool. The stark contrast of viewpoints, and you have several different factions. Why don't you talk a little bit about how the spirits of the forest, or like the animal representations of them, are kind of at a stalemate war against Irontown.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy because the wolves are kind of they've kind of taken a step back from the fighting, but the apes and the boars kind of like want to like take it to the humans. You know, they want to fight it out, kind of.
They're a little more hot-headed.
Right, like the apes were talking about like eating the humans.
yeah I don't
They
know.
wanted to eat the humans.
That was weird.
And I forgot who it was that said like, no, you don't want to you don't want to eat the humans. You don't want to, you know, like kind of like essentially like that's not what you eat.
Was it San? Was San the one doing that?
That might have been San, yeah.
Or maybe one of the wolves. I forget.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Actually, I think it was one of the wolves. It was one of the wolves. I'm pretty sure that was saying that.
Okay.
And then yeah, the boars were kind of the boars like they wanted like to take the fight to
the death.
To the humans.
Yeah. But they were willing to sacrifice it all. They were at the end, like they didn't see any room for hope in a world with humans.
Right, and it was kind of like in a way with like Lady Eboshi was the same way. Like she wanted to like fight, like she wanted to get rid of these spirits. And the thing that I liked about Ashitaka's character is that he was actually like the middleman. He didn't want anybody to get hurt. He really wasn't on anybody's side. Like he didn't want the spirits to get hurt, so he was trying to pretty much persuade Lady Eboshi to like stop what she's doing. And then he tried to, he wanted to persuade the spirits to like, hey, don't do this. Too many people, too many like beings are gonna die. Too many humans, too many spirits are gonna die.
Too many cooks.
And so like he was kind of like, yeah, exactly. So like he was like the middleman. Like he wasn't for or against anybody.
Yeah, he was a mediator between the different races of man and even the different races of spirits. And he was just trying to keep the peace. But, sometimes war is unavoidable. What I liked about the boars, their hot-headedness, their pig-headedness, they reminded me of, like, the dwarves in stuff like Lord of the Rings and stuff, or that type of character, just very, like, blunt and gruff, like, we have to do it this way because this is the way it's always been done. So, I mean, yeah, it's interesting. Like, I guess you can, like, make the parallel of, like, the Mines of Moria, how instead of leaving, they fought to the death, and literally, like they lost their lives. The people or the dwarves who existed there before, the events in Lord of the Rings,
right?
And this is kind of what we're seeing now in Princess Mononoke, is like the end of this line of animal or spirit or whatever you want to call this creature that's a mediator for. I think they're like the mountains, right? Which is another like parallel to dwarves, is that they're like the protectors of the mountains, and like in so destroying the forest, they're also destroying the mountains by like
right. They like travel the distance.
Yeah, to fight. It's cool. We finally get to like the climax of the story, and it's essentially Lady Eboshi is trying to finish the fight once and for all. It's come to a head. You have the boars, you have the apes, you have the wolves, and so on, kind of coming together to stop humankind. And then they each have several layers of like revelations between them. One of the weird parts for me, one of like the more unsettling parts, is the moment when they're in the forest and the leader of the boars is being corrupted by this curse, and you have like humans running around in the skins of boars around him.
Yeah, that was weird.
It's like a really unsettling moment. I don't even know what to like make of it, besides like, wow, this is a really creepy, even like visual, but it's a memorable one. And then what do you think about Lady Eboshi's action with the spirit or the Nightwalker?
Like, I found it pretty insane. I found it pretty insane that she decided to go through with killing the spirit of the forest. And the reason why I say that is because, I mean, there had been so much going on up until that point. People were getting killed. I mean, both people and spirits were being killed. at this point, I would have thought that, somebody would have tried to do some peaceful resolution, but no, like she went there with a mission and she executed that mission.
Yeah, and it didn't seem like she had any other choice or was willing to compromise with her choice. And even after things started going bad, because she shot the head off of the Nightwalker, and instantly, like, everything around the Nightwalker as it was looking for its head started dying. It was almost like the death of the forest. Like, she shot the heart out of the forest, and everything around it was dying as it was beheaded, and it was looking for its head so that it can fix itself or whatever.
Right. Billy Bob picked it up.
Billy Bob, yeah, and he tried to like take it away to like give to the king or something like that.
Yeah, to like the emperor. That was like a background storyline that the emperor wanted the head of the spirit of the forests for some reason.
And it seemed it seemed to coincide with her desire to get rid of the forest spirits altogether, to keep her town moving. So they teamed up, and it was like a long, like 5-minute like chase between the humans running away with the spirit of the forest's head, while like his translucent like manifestation form of like a gigantic thing searching for his head was like terrifying and freaky, but also really cool.
And yeah, so like throughout this film, or at least this like final half, San and Ashitaka kind of have like this like connection. Like in her mind, she's thinking that she's a wolf and that she's against the humans, but you actually find out that she's a human, but her parents kind of casted her to the side, and so the wolves took her in as one of them.
Yeah, and it's obvious that she's human.
Yeah, of course.
There's nothing about her that, besides like her temper and like her way of behaving amongst other humans, there's nothing about her that like makes her in any way not human. But for whatever reason, she's under some sort of curse or spell or delusion that she is the daughter of this wolf, and the wolves obviously know that she's not a wolf, but they take her in as one. I don't know if he's going for some like mythological like basis for this or whatever, or how he came up with the idea for San, but you have like the Roman story of Remus and Romulus, the founders of Rome, who were supposedly raised by wolves, and Romulus was they named Rome after Romulus. So I don't know if that has anything to do with this. It might just be like a parallel story that I'm comparing this to, but anyway, I think it's an interesting little comparison.
I agree that there's a lot in this story that you could see taken from other like mythologies.
Yeah,
and it's really cool because it's incorporated but kind of makes it its own.
Mm-hmm.
And so it kind of puts its own stamp on it, and I think that's really cool.
It's also markedly different from Western animation and movies in general, just because it is an Eastern movie. It's an Eastern interpretation of like the naturalistic world, or anthropomorphization of nature. It's through a Japanese lens, so to speak. So you have some like Shintoism mixed in with Buddhism and stuff, and you come up with some like an environmental message it's universal. The idea that you shouldn't destroy the forest, you should try to live with the forest, is universal. But the way the story is presented, especially in like a 14th century Japan, is an interesting one, because it's not something that we would ever be exposed to,
right,
had this not existed.
Yeah, that was something that you and I were talking about kind of like off the record.
Mm-hmm.
And that this film was pretty much that the message of this film was to respect nature and to respect those that live in nature, and to show that there's a balance that needs to be respected. And it really does show in this film the importance of that. And it's pretty cool, like you said, the way that it was shown is not something that you would see in a Western perspective. It's more of an Eastern perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's kind of the charm that Americans see in Miyazaki's movies, is that he is clearly very Japanese. You know, there's no way about that. The way, but he also he's a people watcher. Like he sees how people act, and he makes his animation as real to life as possible, even like down to like little details. As part of the director project that I've been working with over the past couple of months, making video essays and stuff, I made the one on Nausicaa. Someone just released their Princess Mononoke video today, actually. It's a channel called Accented Cinema, and he kind of showcased how like there's little details of like actions that characters take that don't further the plot at all. You know, there's stuff like when they're in the forest and he has like the injured soldier by his side, he goes to get water, but before he draws water from the lake, he washes his bowl really quick, or he rinses it, and then he picks it up. And it's just like it's an action you could see humans making, you know, like if you have a dirty bowl in a bag, you're gonna like rinse it out before you actually start drinking water out of it. But it's little things like that that don't add anything to the plot. They don't add anything to the character, but it's subtle details that make it like a believable character trait that the guy would have or whatever.
Right. Yeah, no, I do like that. And I know what you're talking about. I remember that part. And the cool thing is that not every scene in a movie has to contribute to the overall story of the film, just so long that it has a purpose. And it did have a purpose. It was, like you said, a very human action, you know, to clean out your bowl before you use it. That was a very natural thing for a person to do. And so yeah, like it served a purpose. And I thought that small detail was pretty cool, because I do remember thinking in the back of my mind, like, oh, you know, he kind of like washed his bowl.
Yeah, it's little things like that, like, and apparently like it's all over, it's scattered throughout all his movies, but like especially in this one, like he really took pains to doing the little things that people would do in situations. Or, you know, you watch I think Spirited Away. Yes. Whenever Chihiro is like nervous, she'll like grab her shirt and she'll kind of hold herself in a way that you can see like a little kid, you know, like a nervous reaction that a little kid would have. And then it's he has little things like that like kind of just show a realistic look on, or a mimicking of realism that humans have, or little tendencies that we make that don't add anything to the story, but kind of are like salt and pepper for, you know, us enjoying the meal that is the movie. And I like that about what he does. Anthony, we've been talking for over an hour.
Well, Princess Mononoke is a great film, and I think it's worth breaking it down. Oh, so we didn't get the last little nugget at the end.
Oh yeah, let's go through that really quick before we wrap up.
There's you know, the spirit of the forest is kind of like attacking everything looking for its head. And so it's kind of like spreading out like this curse, and there's pretty much this scramble. Ashitaka and San are pretty much scrambling to find the head because they want to give it back to the spirit, and so they end up doing it. There's a scuffle between I like calling him Billy Bob.
I do too.
There's a scuffle between them and Billy Bob and his goons, and they end up on this rock being surrounded by like this like curse. And so they offer up the head, and the body of the spirit kind of just like goes over like the area, like destroying stuff, but also healing Ashitaka and San, because San ended up getting that curse on her too.
Right.
So it was pretty crazy, because like after that moment, they wake up and they're like in a lush like field. You know, there's like the area is beautiful. Yeah. It's like, so like the spirit, it dies. It ends up dying. And in that like last act, it healed Ashitaka and San and pretty much healed the land too. and that was pretty cool. That was a pretty cool like way to end the movie.
Yeah, it was almost like the conscious regrowth of the environment. Touching upon that, I learned recently a little detail that I didn't know, and that's after the Nightwalker does that and like heals San and Ashitaka, you can see the little detail of one of the lepers earlier in the film is also healed. So like he has like the bandages all over him, but like he's able to move. He's not, and he's healed. So I think that's a little cool detail. And it's the attention to detail that sets Miyazaki's work apart, in my opinion.
Right.
But it's also like a hopefulness, like his movies don't end with a depressing note ever.
Right.
Even sad movies of his, they always end with some hopeful look at the future, and this is no different.
Even Lady Eboshi kind of like changes her perspective and sees that it's important to kind of respect nature, and it's not just like a frame of mind. Like you could tell that she seems she's like a little like lighter, like she seems a little happier than like her
she doesn't have a chip on her shoulder anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
Like she was walking around the movie pretty much the Ice Queen.
Yeah.
And she kind of like warmed up in that moment, and she
needed to let it go.
Lady Elsa.
I had to. All right, guys, thank you so much for listening. If you liked this episode of Project Geekology, please be sure to subscribe wherever you're listening to your podcast, whether that be Audible, whether that be Stitcher, whether that be Apple Podcasts or other. We appreciate every single one of your listens. We just hit 750 downloads for the show, and between the first 13 releases that we've done, that's pretty awesome. I don't think most small podcasts get that much traction so quickly. So I'm really happy about that. We're really happy about that. I know Anthony, you posted about it on Twitter earlier today.
Of course.
Yeah, so thank you guys so much. We've actually been seeing a little more audience participation in terms of people interacting with us on Twitter through our @pgeekology handle. There we have a few people regularly commenting on like the shows, talking about what they appreciate, and that goes a long way and keeping us motivated to keep going. Next week we have a fun one. I think I'm going to have to replay this game. Anthony, you want to introduce it to us?
So yeah, next week we know what we're going to be covering. We're going to be covering Kingdom Hearts 1.
Yes.
The Kingdom Hearts before everything becomes like extremely convoluted.
And it's already pretty convoluted. It's not
right.
It's not the most straightforward story, but it's a story that I hold dear to my heart. It's probably my personal best favorite game ever. And I'm not saying it's the best game ever, because it's not, but it's so fun, and the nostalgia for it. I can't wait to talk about Kingdom Hearts next week.
Yes,
cannot wait.
I can't wait. I can't wait either. That I hold it dear to my heart also, and it's going to be a great. I think it's going to be a fun discussion. Every discussion is fun. We talk about things that we really enjoy, and I like that a lot. Just to kind of like hop on to what Dakota was saying. Yes, we really do appreciate the participation between all our handles. We have some of you guys reaching out to us on the Instagram. We have some of you reaching on to Twitter, and we really do appreciate that. Reviews, they go a long way. They help us out, not really just motivation wise, but it actually helps our show by the more reviews that we get, the more positive reviews that we get, it pushes us up, the list of podcasts, and we really do appreciate those who take the time and do that for us. And we thank those of you that continually engage with us. And if you haven't followed, follow us on Twitter @pgeekology or on Instagram @Project Geekology. We have it in the show notes, so if you want to look at that too, to find our social media handles. After we get a little bit more of a listener base, we'll probably end up setting up something like a Discord. I think will be pretty cool.
That would be good.
I think that would be great for the community to engage, and I think that would be awesome. But yeah, stay safe. We can't wait to be back to talk about Kingdom Hearts next week. Any last remarks, Dakota?
No. No thoughts. Thank you, guys. I'll talk to you, Anthony, next week. See you later, guys.
Yes. Bye.